Call our meeting to order, the Commissioners' meeting of May the 18th, Monday. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our prayer. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day. We come to you with thanks, Lord, for the gift of life, getting us all out and getting us started this morning, Lord. We owe it all to you, and we thank you, Lord. We ask for your guidance, Lord, as we go through our meeting today. We can accomplish the right things for our county. Go with us and be with us, and we thank thee for all the blessings you've given us, Lord. These blessings I ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Has everybody looked over their previous minutes of the 420, 427, 5-4? Everybody looked over the agenda? Anybody? We need to amend, add on a appointment for the Water Authority and a financial update from Karen. A motion.
Motion to approve, sir.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Motion on the minutes from 420.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
And that includes all three sets, by the way.
427 and 5-4. All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Public comment. If anyone has any comment at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on down to the Jennifer Green, Appalachian Health. Morning.
My name's Angie Poole, and I'm here on behalf of Jennifer. She couldn't be here this morning. Just to give you a quick update for COVID-19, there are 12 positive cases that have been in Alleghany County. There are 6 active cases, and there's currently 6 individuals being monitored that were in close contact with a positive case. Those numbers are from our website, apphealthcare.com, and it shows 11, 5, and 6, and we learned this morning of another case, so we feel like the individuals being actively monitored will also increase throughout the day and the week based on the most recent case that was identified today. Jennifer, knowing that she wasn't going to be here today, wrote some notes for me to share with you, so I will read through her notes for you, and I will answer as many questions as I can. I'll be glad to take notes if I don't know the answers to your questions and share those, and Jennifer or myself or someone will get back with you with those answers. So before I speak about COVID specifically, I want to remind the board of the 3-year financial improvement plan that this board and the board for Ashe County and Watauga County had met multiple times about and committed to in order to help public health funding and increase public health funding, knowing that it was underfunded prior to COVID-19 happening. So those few points that I want to share, that looking back over the 15-year period that we had shared with the boards about public health funding, the majority of that funding has come during this 3-year improvement plan, and your budget year starting July 1, 2020 would be the 3rd year of that. funding that we receive as a district health department from the 3 counties is only 17% of our funding, and we generate 23% of our revenues through fees and competitive grants and other sources rather than just the State Division of Public Health. Each month we are responding and anticipate a loss of revenues due to COVID-19 of $100,000. So that is in relation to our staff responding to COVID-19 rather than seeing the patients that we would normally see to generate the fees and the revenue that we normally would. We anticipate that $100,000 per month is going to last through at least September, that it may wane some. It may be between $75,000 and $100,000, but it's really too early for us to tell. We have to report our expenditures to the State Division of Public Health monthly, and I did that last week. We had over $100,000 in COVID response expenses for the month of April, and in addition, lost about $100,000 in revenue. So you can imagine that this is a trying time for public health funding. It is true that we received some funding from the federal government, and the majority that we've received because we're a federally qualified health center. So we're still held to the same standards of providing the same care for over 4,000 patients for the grant funding that we competitively applied for and was awarded, in addition to COVID-19 response. We provide primary care, integrated behavioral health, including screenings of suicide risk, substance abuse disorder treatment, including opioid use disorder, chronic disease management for people with complex health problems, dental, both preventive and treatment services, and 24/7 access to on-call staff to assist with health needs for 7 days a week, regardless of a patient's ability to pay. Nearly half of all patients that we serve are uninsured. So some of you may have heard about the new testing criteria that is about to be implemented, and our team learned of more details of this on Friday, and we'll be working to expand testing in the community even more. Testing strategy we've developed following the DHHS guidelines include testing over 5% of our population per month. And this would be over 2,500 people by September in Alleghany alone. Each test that we perform costs $52. And if a person has health insurance, we can bill for that, but we cannot bill a patient if they do not have health insurance. That was a part of the stipulation of the COVID funding that we have received as a public health center or a federally qualified health center, that those funds are for that response, and we cannot bill a patient if we test them or provide services to them that are COVID related. The cost of staffing and testing for Alleghany alone will likely top $490,000 by September. This includes the testing, case investigators, and contact tracing staff. Even in using our own staff, we won't be able to maintain revenue generating services at the same level while doing this response. In some cases, we'll be providing shelter at a local hotel for people who can't safely isolate at home on their own. We estimate this cost to be $1,050 per person if that happened. Keep in mind that this one-time funding that we have for COVID-19 is one-time funding, and that it is for the duration of the response that we are required to do. That could be through this time next year. So, all that being said, we're very grateful for the funding that we've received from the federal government, but we don't believe that it'll be enough. And it's important for our counties to support our response efforts. On Friday afternoon, we learned that this testing criteria that was expanded by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services was shared with providers and the community. So priorities for testing will continue to be what has been in place, and that's anyone with symptoms of COVID, suggesting COVID, or anyone in close contact with those symptoms. And testing priorities have expanded to include people at higher risk for severe illness, which would be people 65 or older, people at any age with underlying health conditions, people working in or living in higher risk settings like those in congregate living, correctional centers, or sheltering locations, key first responders like fire, law enforcement, and other healthcare workers, frontline workers, and essential business employees where social distancing is difficult to maintain, and historically marginalized populations. So the testing has been more widely opened, and that's why we expect for expenses to be greater and more cases to be identified. So that's all I've got. Like I said, I'll be glad to answer what questions I can, or to take notes and pass those questions along that I don't know the answer to someone who can answer them.
New cases that come.
The new case that was identified today is related to the meat processing facility,
Wilkesboro,
Wilkes County. Yeah.
Wilkes County. I also understand that they have a meat processing problem in Surrey.
I
Have we been affected by that? That'd be the Ennis community.
don't know. I can ask if there's any one being monitored.
Any good news?
It was a beautiful weekend.
That it was.
Any other questions?
I've got a couple. Angie, you talked about the projected cost of testing. Can you restate that number, please? Or
$490,000. That's
the current funding for the testing that you're aware of is what amount?
We have received, because we're a federally qualified health center, about $680,000 for COVID response. So when you talk about the $52 test per person times the 2,900 people that we're thinking by the end of September, plus all of our staff cost, the contact tracing, all those things, that's what played into that number.
The 490, is that from today going forward, your anticipated incurred cost for testing, and 680 is total? I mean, there's about $190,000 difference there.
The 680 was funding that we received that can go back into February.
You're going to go backwards with some of that?
So
okay.
the cost that we've identified and started claiming happened last week when I claimed for the month of April. most of the funding was not awarded and identified until the end of March, with the stipulation that we could go back and identify expenses in March, even as far back as January 20th. So we've not identified all those costs yet. Our staff are required to track their time on what we call a time study. So it'll take us a little bit to get all of those costs identified, but we anticipate that those will be around $100,000 a month, because that's what it was for the most recent month that I claimed.
Is there any other thing on the horizon, or any other potential funding mechanisms from the state, or any other things that's coming?
Not that I'm aware of. We do search out competitive grants for things, and the whole COVID-19 has made us look more at telehealth and strengthening that, and trying to figure out how we can in some way keep our clinic visits happening, even though most of our staff, if not all, are responding to COVID-19. So we have applied for a telehealth grant through the FCC. That grant was submitted last week, but it is solely for the technology that would help us be able to do that. It's not really specifically related to COVID-19. It's looking into the future.
Kind of a different way of going forward from the experience that we're currently involved with right now. And one final question is, you say this is federal, this 680.
Yes.
I don't understand fully the process. How much aware is our state of that money, of our state legislatures? And where that's going is that I kind of mentioned it last time, and I know it may not be appropriate, but I would actually make the motion that this board present a letter of partnership with you all and with our state legislators to see if there's anything that they can do to help with this shortfall and this challenge we're having with our local health department, that we should try to at least, I mean, we have some good representatives, but let's make sure that it's on their radar. I know there's many things and many jobs and many hats that they wear, but I would encourage us to go ahead and try to get that action if the board so sees fit. Thank you.
Letter of resolution letter.
We want to take that up at this time?
I would make that motion if the board.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion?
Angie, wait a minute.
Hang on.
Wait a minute.
Any discussion on the letter? All in favor, raise your right hand. Aye, vote. I got one more question.
Wait a minute. I just want to ask her one thing about the qualified health center that you keep talking about. Explain that to the rest of the board, if you would.
Okay, so the three-county public health department serves, of course, you know, Alleghany, Ashland, Watauga counties. We applied 5 years ago for a grant through HRSA to become a federally qualified health center, so that upon the award of that grant, it opened more funding for us. We applied only for Ashland, Alleghany to be a part of that federally qualified health center, because there was already a health center in Watauga County. So that is why we have received the COVID-19 funding that we have received. Your question was, how aware are the legislators in our state about the funding that we're receiving or the shortfalls that we may have? I think they're probably very aware, because most of the emails that I've seen come from their staff and people in their work areas. We received an email from one of Tom Tillis's staff members where they were sharing the information of the CARES Act funding and how it was being distributed. And it's going to a lot of rural hospitals, rural providers, and these federally qualified health centers. So had we not been a federally qualified health center, that $680,000 would not have happened. And the funding that we have received from the State Division of Public Health to serve 3 counties was $95,000. That's it. So I think it was $13 million that was awarded to the state of North Carolina to disperse among the counties for local public health and for the state response efforts. Out of that $13 million, our district got $95,000, and I'm sure that was based on a lot of different things like population, the number of cases that we had versus someplace like Mecklenburg or Durham County. So the federally qualified health center is it's a big deal for Ashland Alleghany County. It brings in a lot of dollars for health care that otherwise I don't think we would have seen.
I have some questions, comments, really. I just went through my reference book. I think we should remind the citizens of Alleghany County just exactly what Appalachian Health is. And I'm going to refer to the briefing that we received on October the 10th of 2019. Years ago, we went together with Ash, Watauga, and Alleghany County so that we could share the personnel to give the requirements that we had by state statute. Please correct me if I state anything differently. Now, in October the 10th, 2019, West Jefferson, Bobby and I were at that meeting. At that time, we were told that you had been dipping into your reserve fund because the counties, 3 counties, which are to support equally, not been able to provide the funding necessary, so you've been dipping into your reserve fund. And the reserve fund was down just about to the level where the state of North Carolina would come in and take over. If that happened, then Alleghany County would have been told how much we would have to provide to maintain the services. Never anticipated COVID-19. Never anticipated the things that we are going through right now. The information that was provided was shortfalls, budget gap. I'm just going to go over Alleghany County's share of that budget gap, the way it was set up. 2018, 2019, $193,853. 18 and 20, $212,706. Shortfall for 2021, $231,889. Now we have COVID-19. We're rapidly eating up that reserve fund, and eventually we're going to have to take something. We're going to have to step up. We've already had this discussion during our budget. As you're quite aware, Alleghany County is under the gun, especially now. The impact of COVID-19 on our tax collection is unknown. Yet we have a pandemic on our hands, which basically we do not know how much it's going to cost us. If anything that I have said incorrect.
No, I've got some of the same information that you have, and you're right. In the meeting that I was also there in September, we shared documents with you that shows that the amount of services that the health department is providing in Alleghany alone costs 10 times more than the funding that we're receiving from Alleghany County. And that was before COVID-19.
You state that you are going to look towards telemed. A lot of your clients can't afford a tablet, computer. So it is a limited portion you're going to be able to actually provide services to under telemed. Or are we going to buy tablets or computers for them? Then we run into the problem that, do they know how to operate them?
Some of the discussion that I was a part of for the grant was to buy boosters for the internet and for our Wi-Fi that's in our building, so that someone who maybe doesn't have a smartphone or a tablet could at least come to our parking lot and we could provide them with a device that would allow them to sit in the parking lot or in their car where they could communicate with the provider who's in the building, and they're still isolated, they're still social distancing, they're still within their comfort realm if they're a high-risk patient, but still within our reach of being able to serve them.
My concern is someone forgets to return the equipment and drives off with it. And my generation, we weren't that computer literate. We're going to have that problem where you can give them a tablet and they won't even know how to turn it on. It's
a difficult time.
It is a difficult time. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing.
The person that's insurance, you can bill the insurance company testing, is that right?
Yes.
The employer we had that had several cases had to test the entire company, and we did that on our own. I think in the future we need to bill the company, test all the employees.
I don't know that our funding would allow us to do that. We would have to probably ask our federally qualified health center project officer, because the stipulations were you can bill the patient's insurance, but you can't pursue collection from that patient in another manner if they are uninsured. So I don't know that we could bill an employer.
I would like to see y'all pursue that.
Okay, I'll make a note.
I think obviously COVID-19 has changed a lot of the way that you're able to do business. And I think the response that the health department had to all three counties is greatly increased. And I appreciate what you've been able to do for Alleghany County. I look back at the requested budget. It was a little over 18,000, just a shade under 19,000 of what we had for last year, the requested amount. I think that if there's any way possible that this board can go back to that 18,000 plus, that would be a large impact for the health department, and would also send a message to Ash and Watauga that we're trying to do the best that we can. We're in this fight together, and not back away from what was projected to be the $18,000+.
Right.
A lot of the services that the health department provides, they're numerous. The WIC program, the helping the infants, mother-infant program. There's about 25 or 30 different programs. It's just not this one COVID. Dental health, all of them. And that's why it's called Public Health Department. We're helping the public, especially for people that are uninsured or underinsured. With those revenues not being seen this year, puts an additional burden on the health department. So I would urge everybody, let's dig a little deeper and see if we can come up with that amount of money.
Right. Our current year appropriation is $212,706. We requested that number and an additional $18,853
Right.
for 2021.
last month, Ms. Green was here, and she talked about maybe some help for the farmers to take temperatures of their employees and some masks. Is that, any progress been made there?
I can't tell you for certain. I know that we did purchase thermometers, a great deal of them. I want to say about 1,000, and some other supplies. I don't know if those have been distributed, but I can find out. So,
Could be a big help to that group. Have any other quick?
Just one final quick piece of information, just to add a little context to John's conversation. I was also at that meeting. For the public's information, that shortfall that we've been on has been because of a change in business structure from the sale of one entity that was actually generating some income several years ago, and then there was a savings realized at that time, and then that's where we've been using from, and there really wasn't a good process put in place or good communication to say, hey, we're headed to a place that is not sustainable at some point, and we're kind of at that point now. So
that's
I
right.
wanted to add that for context.
If I could expand on that, the figure that comes out to me was a shortfall of 1.2 million, which equated to 400,000 for each county. We were looking for that budget request. I was this year. Now that we've got to COVID-19, and for those that say, well, why don't we have our own health department so that we could control it? It would be substantially more than what we are paying right now if we're not sharing individuals to perform services. So the facts of life are coming true. Hey, it's not going down. It's kind of like my waistline. It don't get any smaller. So
Thank you.
it's coming at a rough time, and we're going to have to face it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? Really appreciate you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please stay safe.
Moving on down to general business, Governor's Crime Commission grant funding. Mr. Nick Hawks.
Chairman, he was on the presentation.
Federal inmate program.
Okay.
Did speak to y'all, not last meeting, but the meeting before about the crime commission stuff. Yeah, I was asked to come down and talk to you about the federal inmate program. We did sign an agreement with the Marshal Service recently to house inmates at $65 per person per day. So that's about $25 more per person than what we're getting now from the state inmate program that we're doing. Our goal is to get to 15 inmates right now. We housed 30 many years ago at a much lower rate than the $65, and the program worked well back then. So we've got back in it. The sheriff wanted to proceed and try to get that work back out. So we've got that going. Because of the COVID, it's got us all messed up. So we're not able to collect any inmates or to bring any inmates in right this minute. As soon as some of these restrictions and stuff get by, we will start bringing some of those guys in. And for future plans, we hope that maybe that can grow and prosper, but we got to make sure that they can honor their part by keeping us 15 all the time. There's no sense in trying to pull 30 if they can't keep us 15. So we're going to try to take some steps to work toward a larger population back there. I'm not sure exactly what y'all was looking for as far as details, but I did want to let you know that we signed and it's officially been completed and they've accepted it. And so as soon as this COVID stuff gets by us, we'll start bringing in some federal inmates. Now, it is a $65 per person per day. The other nice thing about this is our transportation rates. They're paying guards they'll pay the county $20 per per guard. They require mandatory 2 guards for any type of transportation, or if they have to go to a hospital, they pay us $20 an hour, pay the county $20 an hour per guard. They also reimburse mileage at 54 cents a mile. So there's some opportunity here.
You have a staff to do the transport?
So we can maintain what we've got until we get to that number. When we get to that number, of course, if y'all can remember early on when we was talking about this, it would probably require a couple of staff members. We've done some numbers on it to make sure that it works
Do you
out.
use reserve or retired?
It would.
Because it would be a constant. You're not going to have people going every day, would you?
Well, so we're not doing away with our state inmates. Okay, so we're adding to the jail. Yeah, we're not doing away with one and adding another. We're going to maintain what we have and try to keep that program going, and add additional federal inmates, which is going to generate a good bit of money. Just on the federal side, we won't talk about the state side. Just on the federal side, on a gross amount, that's $365,873. Now, with meals, of course, we'd have to pay for those, but with the renegotiated rates on those, I think we're in a better place than we even was. So we figured our meals at about $100,000. That still leaves us, minus the meals, $255,000. So there is some room to bring in some additional staff if we need to there.
All this federal money is over and above
Over and above.
current state inmates.
Yes,
Right.
that would be the plan.
The ones coming in from the federal program, once you start that, do you have a way of testing them to make sure they don't have the virus when they're?
So we already have the jail set up right now, temperatures being checked, so quarantines and some of those things for any newly admitted inmates. All the jails around the state are doing pretty much the same thing, and I think the federal system's followed suit as well. So yeah, there will be all kinds of precautions put into place once we get this started.
The additional 15, that's in the wing that you're not using right now?
No.
What about the wing that you're not using?
So later down the road, once we make sure that we can maintain the 15, and they indicate that, hey, we can add on even more, that'd be a conversation we'd come back to y'all again, because that would require some cost to get that old wing back up and going. We could house 15 and not do anything to our facility the way it is.
With the wing that's not being used, I think that was my reason for asking for you. When do you plan on putting some numbers together, fix the cells, fix the locks, or I don't even think most of them have locks anymore?
Yeah, so what happened there is we pretty much robbed from Peter to pay Paul. They put a locking system in that jail when it was brand new that was brought out of another facility, and the reason why they got rid of them was because it was an old system. There's been a lot of locks that's broke, things like that. So anytime that something happened in the facility that we were using, they'd go up there and take the locks and the things like that from that old facility there and bring them back and put them in there. So,
Just to give you some support on that, whenever Mr. Prince and I looked at that, we were told that old locking system, the best that they could figure was manufactured in 1967.
yeah, I'd say that's about right. So the building was built in 90, and it was taken out of a jail and put in our building in 1990. So that lets you know the age of those locks.
But back to my question, when do you think that you'll have a cost as to how much it's going to take to fix up whatever you're going to call that wing, the storage wing or the weightlifting room or whatever, versus how much money you could be bringing in, so that we can start planning for the next year that we'll have to have X number of dollars to fix that wing and we expect X number of dollars to come in to see if it's worthwhile.
Yeah, so has been some discussion. I don't have a definitive answer for how much it's going to cost yet. There has been some conversations about it. We anticipate that there probably would even require putting in some new piping in the floor and things like that. So I have been in conversation with a couple of contractors, just briefly. I don't have no answers back, and we haven't sought a full estimate yet. We got to make sure that we're going to have the inmates first. So this is this is the starting of that. If we can get these 15, if they can promise us 15 and we can keep 15, and things are going well, and they indicate that maybe they could up their quantity of folks to us, then we can continue to proceed. I don't think we couldn't build it overnight. In other words, so this is going to be a process, and I don't think that unless there's something that I'm not seeing, I don't think that this could be done in the next year. This is probably a year or two process, trying to make sure.
I know you couldn't build it overnight, and I know we couldn't fund it overnight.
Sure, that's
But
right.
we just have to see the numbers.
Right. So this is going to start that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any further questions?
Thank you very
On
much.
them to
Let's talk about the Crime Commission
the
grant.
commission. Next.
So that's the presentation that I give
Okay.
y'all.
All right, we got it.
Not last meeting, but the meeting before. I didn't bring any of those numbers because I wasn't prepared to talk to you about that. But do y'all recall that conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We can schedule it at a later date if we need to.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I presented last time, do action. For the action.
So we need to vote on that?
Okay.
To approve.
A motion that we approve.
A motion to hear a second.
Second.
A motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Chairman, what is the motion?
Fund
Motion that
the,
we approve I make a motion that we approve the Governor's Crime Commission grant funding from the Sheriff's Department budget.
It's not under for action.
wrong slot here. Okay.
Now, general business can be anything. How do we even have a for action category?
Agenda.
Have two agendas, and you got a consent agenda and then things that we can take action on.
Okay, so we got a motion and we got a second. Seconded that. Wait a second.
Question, is that motion?
We're
Five,
sitting back there talking about.
yeah, because I'm a little bit,
Okay,
I'll make
if
sure we're
you
clear.
remember, I wish I'd have brought that stuff with me today. If you remember, what happened was we had a shortfall. Do y'all remember that conversation about the shortfall to get us to where it picks back up again in October? We've been working a position down. The funding was already in our budget. We just requested to divert those funds that's already there to support how much was the dollar amount? It was about 2 months of salary.
you're doing an in-house transfer
It's it's just seeking y'all's permission to divert those
for
funds.
that shortfall because of the timing of when that grant cycle funds.
Clear? I got any more questions about that? Motion second. All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Council on Aging status update.
And I can talk about that. I think at some point in the last couple of weeks, there was a question about maybe the status update for the Council on Aging facility. And it actually received what's on page 13 as an update to that facility. It's broke down into office section, common area, and the kitchen area. And just to run very quickly, the office section seems to be about 90% complete. Common area seems to be around 35%, and the kitchen area is at about 10%. I know there is thoughts about completing that facility so that we can take the next step as we get closer to courthouse discussions. Would like to say that our maintenance staff has been doing a lot of the work up there, as well as the contractors outside the maintenance staff, and we're certainly appreciative of all those involved in that. Outside of those, we had a department head meeting last week that we talked about other departments pitching in and helping out, and we identified 3 Fridays, which included last Friday, as days that we would all try to commit some time to that facility to help out, and we had a very good showing. We had some fun while we had a good showing, but it was an overall way of bringing departments together and looking at something that you can say you had a part in, and I'm very proud of the representation we had. We'll continue that again this Friday. Not only did we have department heads there, but we had a few commissioners stop by as well and lend out a helping hand, so we're appreciative of that. But hopefully we can get this thing back up on track and closer to being completed.
Sounds good. Next 2 Fridays, say that can come and help.
Mr. Chairman, I have some concerns about this. Basically, the courts have been shut down, which means we've got a backlog of cases. I'll defer to our esteemed judge-elect to confirm that. And we've got to get cracking on that Council on Aging building, because we've got to get that old community building converted. I don't know if we can delay and try and do it within the county as long as we can. It's a disposition of the judges, Your Honor.
At this point, we're anticipating courts to resume after June 1st. That could change again.
Think we can delay this conversion any longer? What's the feelings? Are you getting any vibes?
To any judges.
I know you don't want to sit in that lower courthouse room and
I'm not
have your
going to.
ankles licked by a pit bull again.
I'm going to tell you, that's not going to happen. I can absolutely refuse to hold court in that room, and I would. I'm not for my soon-to-be colleagues, but I'm telling you, I will never hold court in that courtroom.
Thank goodness you haven't been sworn in yet and can direct, but
I mean,
I believe that gives us an indication of where we are.
I mean, they're not going to be able to hold court any faster than the amount of judges and cases that they would normally see. They're just going to open up. Are they going to extend their hours? I mean, how are they going to see more cases in a shorter period of time than what we've been seeing in the past?
I think that the whole process is going to be slowed down even more because of protocols within the courtroom, and that you're going to have masses of people that we don't know where we're going to put them. Even the limited court that we're doing now, tomorrow will be an example. The judge is going to allow one defendant or party into the courtroom at a time, and we're congregating everybody else in the downstairs hallway, which seems to me to be counterintuitive. We can spread them out better in the courtroom, but that's what we're doing. So instead of having social distancing, we're concentrating people on those benches in the downstairs hallway.
Which is not uncommon to what all courts are going to be.
Most
Social
other
distancing
courthouses
challenges
have
and
a little more room to spread out people.
still congregate. I mean, because of the backlog, if they go up, I think everybody's going to be in the same boat.
Horry County has a different method of dealing with it. I'm hoping that statewide will develop protocols that will alleviate some of those problems. But for right now, I think we're probably doing as poor a job as anybody.
Anything right now.
I mean, right now, we're making the problem worse, in my opinion. If we had them upstairs in the courtroom and we only had 12 people, we could spread them out. But you got 12 people in the downstairs hallway sitting on 3 benches, we're jamming them all together.
Excuse me, ma'am, but, you know, common sense and government, usually that doesn't go together.
It's like oil and water.
My concern is, with the backup, are there going to be more demands for that courtroom?
I think it's possible. It all comes down to scheduling, and I'm not in control of that.
So there's a possibility we could have increased demands for that courtroom. They're dissatisfied with it. We need to get cracking.
We even have a final plan for the remodeling of the second courtroom. We know that we're going to have the electricity, the air conditioning, the seating. Do we even have that done?
You're asking me, I have not seen that plan. Now, there are those.
We have, Mr. Chairman, we were given a floor plan.
A final plan.
I don't believe it was final. It was something to look over.
I have seen some drawings.
We had two different floor plans. Has anybody picked a floor plan? Has anybody started looking at what the costs are going to be? When we can get a contractor? I mean, we can't wait till the day we move Council on Aging and then say, well, now we need to start. We need to start now, laying the groundwork. We can be ready to move as soon as Council on Aging leaves.
It's been my understanding that there was once a committee that was set up that included various organizations, agencies, departments
That's correct.
that met to discuss these things. I had a meeting with the sheriff last week. We talked about that. He has volunteered to get that committee back together and start that process now.
Well, at that last committee meeting that you're referring to, the architect was there. We toured the whole building. Judge Byrd was there, and he approved what that general plan was. And that plan has been replaced by these 2 other plans. I don't know what the judge's involvement was. This isn't just a decision for the sheriff's department. The lawyers have to be involved, the judges. The judges are the ones who, in my opinion, would have the final say.
The sheriff only volunteered to coordinate it because he had direct communication with all those involved. So he is working on that, and once we get that established, I don't know. I don't know if there were members from the Board of Commissioners.
What?
How many of you are on that?
Mark and I were on that for a while. Courthouse security.
And Judge Byrd was involved in the discussions as well. So, you know, it's a matter now of money and time. We got to get the other building ready. And knowing what time frames is important to trying to get bids.
I would ask for our next regular commissioners meeting, for whoever's going to head this up, present a plan. We need to get back together. It's going to be June. I don't know when is Council on Aging expecting to move? July or?
I will speak to that. I'm the commissioner on that commission. They were expecting to be moved into the building by 1 July. That was the date that Josh had presented to them, or it was presented to our board. We were looking at October, November of this year to have that building completed. The conversion over. I can assure you that is not going to happen, because you've got contractors, electricians that went into the basement, were going to run some lines, and they came out, they would not even go in there because it was wired in the 20s and 30s. Nothing's been done. We had to put in a new furnace. There's a lot of work that are going to go into that building, and there's a lot of work that is concealed by drywall right now. Whenever they start opening it up, it is hard telling what we are going to run into. We had the front door leaking for 3 years. We thought that the floor joist had rotted. Finally got that taken care of. Thank the good Lord there wasn't any rotted floor joists. That's just the tip of the iceberg I'm afraid, whenever they started getting in there.
May I ask, was the plan from the Board of Commissioners to utilize funding within the state budget to help offset some of these costs?
Not that I recall. We put in, I think Mr. Green had given us an estimate of $190,000 to remodel. And that's the last I've heard about any funding.
Remodel the courthouse.
The new one.
Yes.
The community building to the additional courtroom.
That was part of a loan of this
Yeah.
total project, this
Right.
900
We
something.
had-
The
we-
900,000.
Yeah, that's where the funding
Money's
for
been
that-
borrowed and should be sitting somewhere.
We did do the $900,000 loan for the new COA and the remodel of the existing COA for the courthouse space. In that loan, there was $170,000 set aside for the courtroom space. Out of that, where we had, you alluded to the furnace heat pumps, we went ahead and had to replace the heat pumps because they were having major air conditioning and heating issues there. So that's already been paid out of that 170. So that's where we're sitting right now on the money side of things. And it's
What's the balance of that 170?
163 off the top of my head.
It's available to start to work on it?
Yes.
That air conditioning reventilation, when we replace that, will still serve the new courthouse.
Yes, that it was purchased with that in mind. So yes.
I would like to add, pretty sure y'all remember getting an email with the two different floor plans. Sure, one of those two floor plans, I'm positive of this, I was in a meeting with myself, Judge Doughton, Judge Byrd, Judge Duncan, Sheriff Cox, Gamble. One of those two plans, they basically gave their approval on. And it's one that has the judge's bench at near the kitchen end. There's two different plans, kind of a mirror image of each other. The one that they gave their unanimous consent sitting at that table that day. From there, the sheriff was going to take it to, he has some folks involved with the state to come and kind of give their review of it and feedback on, and I never heard any response from that. Was in another meeting where a representative came and there was a discussion, but there was supposed to be feedback given from her, and I never did see anything from that. I don't know where it developed from there. That's information that I'm aware of. The judges did see that one version, and like I said, agreed that they liked it and would be okay with that one version. So, but that was just a floor plan is all we had.
The last meeting that I attended was with Judge Byrd, architect, county manager, myself. I can't remember if the sheriff was there or not. It was just the opposite that Judge Byrd wanted. He wanted his bench to be towards where the elevator is, where it could go out, there's a little electrical room on that back side that had a door. And that's the last one that I remember.
And we visited both of those conversations with the entire group, and after they talked and discussed, they all came to the agreement or consensus on the alternate plan.
Yeah, I was left out of that meeting.
So the sheriff
I don't
has the
know.
blueprint,
Yeah.
the one that they like the best.
Yeah.
That's why I think I think the county manager ought to take the lead in this and get us back on track as to what we're building and when we're building it. And if our money, the way it sounds right now, we've already spent down part of the money, that's something that can be used in the new courthouse. I'm like John, we can't wait till the last minute. We got to get started.
Chairman, I believe we've identified a big crack, something that went down in it. Certainly, famous saying from our current county manager is, "This wasn't in my welcome aboard package." And he's behind the power curve. But we've got to get this taken care of. The disposition of these judges, especially, this has been going on for 2 or 3 years. Don't need to wave a red flag in front of them, especially whenever they've got a backup of court cases. And whenever we finally get out from under COVID-19, it's going to be testy. So, need to put another to-do item on your list, sir. But this is one that we need to put some priority on.
I'll get some information together for your June meeting. We'll go from there.
Thank you.
The last meeting that I was talking about was May the 28th, is when the architect was there and Judge Byrd was there.
28 of which year, sir?
19. Over a year ago.
It's a year and a day right now. Or, I mean, it's a year to the day.
Chairman, I think we beat this to death.
Let's roll on. We're done here. We're going to get it scheduled up for next month.
I believe we are,
My
Mr.
orders.
Chair.
Next up, Pavement Wilkes Community College, BDC Library.
And I don't mind to address part of that as well. If you remember at your last meeting, I brought this idea up after looking at the existing pavement at the BDC. And understanding that at that time there was a year warranty, which I believe went into effect in August. I referenced that if we are going to look at trying to recover or basically fix some of the issues with the paving out there, that we probably should do that. I know that on Friday, a couple of you were also at that facility and looked at the pavement as well. So yes, I'm allowing for discussion, but ultimately I think that if it is a concern of the board, I think that we should formalize some discussions with the contractor, get an understanding better from the one who performed the actual paving, and then go from there and ultimately, hopefully, find some type of resolution to the concern.
I think we need to pursue that to get him back and let him look at that and see what can be done.
You need a motion on that?
Yeah, we do.
Motion to move forward with the revisiting the warranty at the.
A motion to hear a second.
Second.
A motion, a second, any discussion?
What was the motion?
To get the company back here to talk about, see what they can do to that parking lot up there.
What are the problems with the parking lot?
There's some drainage issues. There's some less than good asphalt runs, which the top coat's peeling on some of it. It's showing some of undercoating more. Some of the around it, there's some additional drainage issues around on the side that goes into the back door portions of it. It's just an overall, it doesn't drain appropriately. It appears not to be.
Has anybody been in contact with the contractor?
I just brought it up at the last meeting.
We're talking about
That's
it.
what we're
He's gonna
voting
do.
on.
Yeah,
Get a meeting set up.
yeah.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Thank you. Moving on down to cardboard recycling. Mr. Carter.
It's an update. I've mentioned for a few months now my plan to improve the transfer facility, and as everyone recalls, we have stopped recycling activities for the interim. There was a meeting between our chairman, through Mr. Brady and myself. We talked about some expectations, some continuations. And at that meeting, I had basically identified to Mr. Brady that all of the material, minus the cardboard that is being stored there currently, I put an end of the month date on it to have that material removed. There's some pieces of equipment that he has there also that needs to be removed. And all of this is an attempt to really see what the footprint of that facility is. Right now, really can't tell what the footprint is, but when it goes to cardboard, he is going to continue to operate cardboard. And basically what we talked about was continue to receive that. He would have a skid steer and a fork truck inside that facility to help move that material around, but everything else would be off-site. And once we got that cleaned up, once we got an ability to kind of revisit, then I think that we can then resume looking at markets or other opportunities to bring other recycling back. But until we get it cleaned up, until we get a footprint that we can work with, that's kind of where I was at with that whole concept.
Don't need any motions or anything on this, though.
Could I add one thing that I had, I was there at the transfer station Thursday or Friday. There's been a big change in the way that things look. It's a whole lot cleaner, it's a whole lot neater. They were out working on, I guess it was some of the refrigerators and some of the white goods, but they're also working on the cleaning up the area around the mulch pile. Didn't seem to be nearly as much trash blowing around and stuck out in the trees in the field. And I think whoever's doing that, they're doing a good job of it.
Moving on, recreation.
One quick question. So we are still taking cardboard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We should make sure the public's aware of that too.
We're still picking up cardboard.
Okay, good.
Megan?
On Thursday, I received an email from our Tar Heel League District Director, Stephen Poulos, saying that he has recommended to their county manager and Board of Commissioners to cancel summer camps as well as baseball and softball leagues and issue full refunds to all those that signed up. So with him being the director of our district, all of the directors in our district have followed suit, which for us means we wouldn't have anyone even to play against. So I think that we're going to have to do the same thing with the case count going up on the 16th, especially, he said, with the drastic increase of numbers that they just don't feel comfortable. And with the guidelines that are coming from Major League Baseball, they're saying cleaning or new ball between each batter, cleaning the dugouts between each inning,
No spitting.
no sunflower seeds. I mean, yes, they're putting not even the players are allowed in the dugouts. They're going to be putting them in the stands if they get to play. And I think with college baseball already being canceled, then that's just the suit that
Go.
we're following. So from you all, I need permission to refund.
Need a motion to authorizing you to refund funds you've already received, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that we refund the funds received for reservation of the sports indicated.
Second.
A motion and second to do the refund on the sports.
I don't like it.
Me either. Me either. We're gonna,
However, it does give us an opportunity to catch up on the maintenance on the various
yes,
fields.
yes, and the disc golf course, hopefully get that finished up in this time and work on the overall appearance of Veterans Park during this time as well.
Some grass seed down.
Yes, and I have been in contact with Mr. Pullis because he's the Watauga rec director as well as our district director. And if the governor says, you know, come July or something, we can do some kind of camps or anything like that, then we will revisit doing something like we did last summer with the camps and just do some skills and drills and things like that if we're able.
We got a motion and second to refund. Any further discussion? On favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank you.
Forth and do
you.
great things.
Purchasing agent position.
Chairman, I'll speak to that as well. It's my understanding for a couple of years now, the county has had a designated purchasing agent that was put together to help save monies in consolidation of purchases, and I know that we have an individual that does that in a percentage category. It's not a full-time, but it's a percentage type position. So being here 4 months and trying to get acquainted and understand, I think I've mentioned that I've had some questions about that position. I think that that's understood. So in the last couple of weeks to month, took it a step further. We've talked about duties. We've talked about responsibilities, accountabilities. I've met with department heads. We've talked about those openly as well. I'm here today to basically identify that I think that we can place the responsibility and require the accountability of these purchases for these departments on the department heads themselves. And I feel like that is part of being a department head. Now, we've talked about it in an open format. There may be some sharing of information, or certainly we still want to consolidate when we're buying in bulk. We want to do that, but that incorporates departments working together, building those relationships, having a common understanding. And at the end of the day, I just think that with that approach and with the proper instruction and oversight, we can make that work. And our department heads are all on board with that. I didn't have anybody to say no. I just think that's maybe a direction that we ought to take now. I share that with you. I'm open to comments or questions. That's where I'm at with it.
So, having struggled through the budget with you, there's a lot of reasons to discontinue dealing with that. I think the approach you're taking with the departments and the teamwork, I think we can accomplish that. I've been in large corporations where it was necessary because you were so big and so dispersed, but I think for a county our size, I don't think we could save enough money to justify that salary.
I agree with that.
I agree.
I agree. You need
With the proper oversight and a good manager, I would concur as well.
We need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we do He's a county manager. He's telling us what he wants to do. I have full faith and confidence in him.
Righty, moving on. Aaron Evans, Finance Officer.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have a few things. The first thing that I have is a line item transfer that is for Board of Elections, and I asked Sherry to come also, so if there's questions between the two of us, we can answer them for you. What this is Sherry has a line item transfer going from her equipment line to her line item that's fees paid to her board members, and it's $335. And what this will do is cover the additional meetings they've had to have this year. And it's also, they have had to expand to 5 board members. And that came down from the State Board of Elections that they had to have 5 members as well. And this $335 will get us through to July 1. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, has that increase been reflected in the 2021 budget?
Mr. Carter.
We're going to need to amend the figures on the 2021 budget to reflect the additional member and the additional charges.
Budget was for 2021 was for the same amount as last year. And I thought it would be enough when I done the budget, but come to find out, some of the funds was going to another board member's board. What board was that?
We have one person who is on the Board of Elections who also serves on our planning board.
Planning board.
And so therefore, in our accounting software, it immediately coded his Board of Elections fees to the planning board fees, and we've since rectified that, and that's part of the reason why we need this
Yeah.
line item transfer.
But it'll be very minimum adjustment that we'll have to make.
And may I make a suggestion? What was the dollar amount again?
$335.
Is
What
that
I
for a
would-
year?
That's the shortfall that she'll need to cover everything for this year that we're in right now.
So we're talking about, let's say, 1 June to 1 July.
Yes.
Okay, that's 1 month. So $335 times 12,
No, it's for the whole year. That is.
the
for
whole year,
yeah.
$335.
Yeah.
Don't pay them much, do we?
No.
And what I'm suggesting, and as opposed to just amending or revisiting the proposed budget, is for us to work within the numbers of the proposed budget and find a solution with the numbers presented.
And I may possibly, after November, be able to cut a couple of meetings to bring that down to within the budget.
With that in mind, I think that we're running right now.
You were scared I was going to destroy all your hard work.
I mean, look,
You can recommend to them that we will accept them denying any kind of money for that purpose.
Okay? Well,
When was the change to 5 members
it
board?
was in the middle of this budget year.
We were 3, then we were 4, and then, well, we were 5.
And 5.
Where
Instead
they
of
gonna
going back
stop
to
at?
3, they went to 5.
Okay. Couldn't 3 handle it?
In my opinion, yes.
Thank you.
How many registered voters do we have? 7,000, 7,200?
A little over 7,000, yeah.
Mecklenburg's got 5 and they got 1 million voters.
Yeah.
What was I saying about government and common sense?
We're just gonna work that out in the budget. We don't need to do nothing
but,
on
but
that.
I think you need something for the current year.
He's going to take
Line
care
item.
of it.
Okay.
So we need, make a motion that we transfer the required funds, sir.
The motion's transfer $335. For a second. A motion second. Any further discussion? Raise your right hand. 5-0.
Thank you all. The next thing I have is I have a couple, about 3 things from our auditors, Gold Killian. The first one is the agreement to provide services. This goes through and talks about everything that they are going to perform for us and for the current year that we're in right now. And in this, they also have their fee schedules, and it lines up with what we currently have in the 2021 budget proposal. So, I hope y'all have had a time to review all of this, but this will need, this one and the next one that I'm talking about with them will need board action because they're not able to work any on our audit for this year until they have the approval and the signed documents back. So, the next one I have is the actual contract to audit our accounts. And you'll notice on the front of the one that's the contract to audit, it actually states that the audit reports are due 10/31 of 2020, which is the normal time frame. Late last week, I received an email from the State Treasurer's Office, Local Government Commission, that they are extending that this year because of the COVID-19 until 12/31/2020. So probably won't see an audit until in the first of the year. So just to let you all know that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sir.
Are we going to approve a contract for 3 years?
So the third thing that I had asked them is for the 3-year proposal. And the reason I asked them for that, it was more on the budgetary side, so we would have an idea of the numbers to budget in future years.
If we approve it, will that lock in that price for the 3 years?
Is my understanding, yes.
Is it their understanding, because we've got to have both parties in agreement?
Yes.
So we're locking it in. If inflation goes crazy, we've got a contract and we're ready to roll.
The only thing that would be subject to change is like our major programs. They include 2 of the major programs in their normal base fee, but that is subject to change every single year. Sometimes we'll have 4, sometimes we have 6. So, I mean, there's some fluctuation there, and that's why they've listed as additional major programs.
Based on the requirements specified by the treasurer of the great state of North Carolina.
And the federal government as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the audit agreement to provide services, the audit contract, and the 3-year audit proposal through fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
Got a motion for the 3-year contract, but I'd like Mr. Carter's input. You think that's a good decision to go for 3 years or to bid it every year?
I've seen that quite often on a 3-year rotation. What it does is it allows you many things, but also to appropriately plan in your upcoming budgets. So I don't see that as an uncommon thing.
A motion, to hear a second?
Would comment or a question, I guess. We have been using their services for 2 years?
Yes.
And the relationship has
It's
been?
really good.
Okay. We know that we've got somebody well to work with, so that we're going into years to work with the same folks.
Good, Bill.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Okay.
The only other thing I'll add to that is that it's been nice for the 2 years of us having the same people that we're working with. Our previous audit firm, we never dealt with the same people all the time. So that was, them learning us learning them, so on and so forth. So that's been a very positive thing. I do have the monthly financial report that I also wanted to provide. In everybody's packets, I have put the lovely 50, 60-page document for our statement of revenues and expenditures for as of the end of April. One thing couple things I wanted to point out was, one, our year-to-date revenue is currently just a little over $1 million more than our year-to-date expenditures. But then I want to take that a step further and go into just the month of April. The month of April, our current revenues was $630,000, and our current expenses for the month of April was close to $1.5 million. That is due to the time of the year that we're in. I've mentioned that 2 or 3 times, but I keep wanting to emphasizing that because that deficit, the $1 million difference that we have right now, revenues over expenditures, that's going to be decreasing. So like for the month of April, we actually had $867,000 more in expenses than revenue. And that's the trend that will continue until we get into when tax bills go out and people start paying their taxes again in late July and August. So I wanted to point that out. Another thing that I also want to point out is that we are able to have the real-time data that's on the dashboard. With now the addition of bringing the person who does the commercial solid waste billing back into the finance office, we now have the ability to post things on a more real-time basis. So like we got our sales tax it was for the month of March, but we received it last week, and it'll be posted before I leave today at 5 o'clock versus everything having to wait until a couple weeks into the next month type thing. So I just want to state my appreciation for allowing that action to have occurred. It has really impacted the finance in a very positive way. And so that was twofold with that is because now the dashboard information is also, it's not so lopsided looking because of journal entries having to wait. So.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing that I would request, instead of sending me a stack of papers and making tree farmers happy, you send it to me electronically.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Have a lot of paper.
Huh? The thing that I wanted to mention is I know the upcoming budget public hearing and fire tax public hearing is tomorrow night. And so the budget committee met again recently, last week. And so in your mailbox as well are new updated revenue and expenses from the budget committee. And this time the expenses look a little bit different. Like there's one sheet of paper per department. So that way we can kind of focus a little bit more on each department if we need to. So I just wanted to bring that up too. So that's in everybody's mailboxes if you don't already have it. That's all the information I have. If y'all have any other questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
Chairman, may I ask? Aaron, typically you do the local spending report also,
It's in there.
which is on page 51. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything about that. But under my comments, but I'll defer to you if you have any comments.
No, that is just, it's an interesting report that we do each, after each pay period. And so what it shows is we track where our money went for that pay period, and we add it to this spreadsheet each time, and it shows what we actually, per vendor, how much we're spending that's retaining the money here locally. And this also goes to show that we really try to keep our money local as much as possible. And that is something that we'll start having. I can present that each month if y'all would like, when I do the monthly financial report, and that would just be part of that report if y'all would like for me to do that.
It'd be a good idea.
Yes.
And
Agree, Mr.
encourage the citizens to do the same thing.
Yes. I won't know anything, as you all know, I won't know anything about the impact of COVID-19 on our sales tax until when I'm standing here next month. We'll we'll have an idea of how April did. But March, our sales tax was right on it, and we didn't see a fluctuation for March.
In the budget workshops, we decreased forecasted sales tax revenue, next month, 20%.
We reduced what we would receive for April, May, and June by 20%. Then we carried that forward into next budget year as well for July, August, and September.
Those are off the projected numbers.
Yes. Thank you all.
Let's add on right here, John Irwin, terms up on Virginia, North Carolina Water Authority. Need to appoint back to that commission. I hear a motion. Appoint. Make a motion to appoint John back to the Water Authority.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Raise your right hand. 5-0. Consent agenda, Miss Rita Miller.
Old finger. Chairman, I have no questions.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. Anything you want to tell us?
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. Public comment. Public comment today. The manager's comment.
Chairman, with the comment is on page 49. Things are a little different down here than road, so we understand that there has to be a message that goes along with the budget. And I've seen some of the past. I'm appreciative of those, but I'm more of a straight to the point kind of person. So I just put together some bullet points on what the proposed budget looks like. And they're on the screen, but you have those, you'll have those for until we adopt this budget. But I wanted to give you an idea of what some of the larger items were that were in this proposed budget, identifying decreases, identifying some changing, maintaining your current real property value. But just thought it'd be good to have some of these points identified now, as opposed to having to go through those individually later. But certainly we'll answer, we'll comment as you deem appropriate.
Good. Anybody got any questions on that?
I'm done.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly do.
The next,
A question.
Bobby.
Just one question on the, a little more than halfway down, the increase, the solid waste and soil, solid waste disposal fees, just looking at a 3% increase.
that's on your haul and disposal rate. That's what the landfill that you're taking it and the provider taking it to there is increasing.
One time, was there some talk about a little bit higher increase to build up a fund to fix some of the problems?
If you look right below that, there's an identified number there to help for facility improvements.
Where does that money come from?
That will come from the established fee structure.
Or the transfer station?
Yes, sir.
So it's a proprietary fund.
Should be.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
The next item is you've gotten a listing of your inspection reports. If you have time to look over those. I have just two other real quick comments, if I may. We've talked a lot about improvements and trying to make improvements. I've had a very good conversation on different occasions with the sheriff, and he is willing to help us out by utilizing some of the inmate labor. We rode around the other day and we looked at different facilities, including the fairgrounds and the fire training facility and the transfer facility, and just, getting ideas on how we can help out in that aspect. He's on board for that, which is very good. There's always a give and a get. I do think that sometime in the upcoming fiscal year, we need to look at the impound lot situation that the sheriff's department has. I think that's something that you all have been made aware of before. In addition to everything else that's out there, I think that's an area we need to look at, because if you haven't been into it, you can't hardly turn around, you can't get stuff out. They're starting to utilize the yard, which was not intended for that purpose. Well, I think there's some improvements that we need to make also at that location, and I think we can get there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any commissioner comments? Evans?
I don't have a lot, but I do have kind of one question. Kind of going back to the budget, your budget message. I like the brevity of that, straight to the point. Very good, from compared to what we've been accustomed to in the past. Are we expecting any changes anywhere other than maybe the solid waste in that budget?
I don't anticipate any fee changes, and there's no fee changes to the residents proposed in the solid waste.
Okay. So then none across the board. Very good.
Oh, I talked earlier about how the dump looks like it's improving, the cleanliness of it, it's been a big change for anybody that hasn't been over there. And a lot of people don't pay attention to the trash dump. I think as commissioners, we've seen the problem for the last years, how many years it's been sort of going downhill. And I think now it's turning that uphill just a little bit. I look forward to what's going to happen in the next year. This year's school graduation was totally different than it ever has been. I think know the students will never forget this graduation as long as they live. The schools, I think, did an outstanding job trying to keep as many people involved as possible. I think they did a good job. The Educational Foundation was still able to give out many scholarships. Those numbers will probably be available in the next week or two in the newspaper. But they did a great job also this year in giving out the scholarships. And just look forward to getting this budget behind us. Starting, I guess, tomorrow night will be one of the big nights, and just look forward to it. And thank you and the Budget Committee for all the work they've done, and everybody, Karen, and everybody that's had input into it. Drew, keep her away from the lake, and she can help us a lot. But I appreciate it.
I'd just like to add, too, about the landfill transfer station. You've accomplished a lot in the last couple of weeks. It looks really different over there, and certainly warranted. I want to congratulate the graduating class of 2020, and they have been under very unusual circumstances, but on the other side, like Bobby says, it'll be a year they'll never forget, be different. And tomorrow night's our public hearing for the budget and the fire tax, and anybody, it's an open meeting, anybody come out that wants to come and express their opinion.
Just a comment to the citizens that, making decisions on reopening the county, under a lot of guidelines from the state and the federal, but us to make it successful, we need the citizens to, when they're out in public, to wear masks, exercise, the distancing. If we don't do those things, then we're going to be back into quarantines, and those are not fun ways to live. So I encourage you to buy a mask, put it on when you're out in public. When you go to the grocery store, I went Saturday, and there was probably 1 out of 10 persons in there with a mask on. And that's all that's going to do is cause more trouble for us down the road. So I encourage you to not be selfish and to respect the other people, and that's what the masks are for.
I have a number of things I'd like to comment on. As the chairman said, there will be a public meeting for the budget and also for the fire tax. One of the challenges we have as the county, and indeed the citizens of Alleghany County, is getting the word out. Especially aggravating whenever the word is placed and it's wrong. According to the Alleghany News, fire tax meeting was May the 12th. That was the fire commission meeting where I met with the public and all the fire chiefs to discuss, and we went over the things that we will be placing into the new contracts whenever it went. Now, I had no one show up saying that they were there for the fire tax meeting. So apparently that wasn't too bad. What really irks me is the fire tax figures. Figures that were in the Alleghany News, there was only one that was correct. One. I got a call Wednesday morning whenever the Alleghany News went online. It was from David Higgins because he had someone from Glade Creek in his ear wanting to know what in the world they did with the $179,620 that the Alleghany County gave them a year before. They never gave them anywhere near that figure. Never gave them a third of that figure. But you know what is surprising? That was the budget request that they had provided the county for 2021. That figure was never made public. Finance office had it. County commissioner had it. Commissioners had it. Where did the figure come from? Whenever I brought it up to the county manager, he said that there would be someone apologizing and getting the correct word out. Well, I don't know if the correct word's out or not, because I don't subscribe to the electronic edition of the Alleghany News. My wife gets the printed paper. This is maddening. We have cussed and discussed the fire tax now for 2.5, 3 years. We have identified the need. We have come to the cusp where we will take a vote. If you look at the county budget this year, there is zero money in there for the volunteer fire departments. Town budget, zero. If there aren't 3 votes, how are the volunteer fire departments going to receive their funds to operate for the next year? They're not using the fairgrounds. That's closed. COVID-19 has placed us in a situation where I warned them 2.5 years ago, if the county ever got to the point where we could not provide the funds, they would have to exist on their fundraising. They said it then and they say it now, they cannot keep the doors open. We have false information being given out. We'll run a correction in the paper. That correction will not be out until Wednesday, the day after the vote. Now, Alleghany News, I understand. The COVID-19 has placed a tremendous burden on you. You've laid off employees, working with minimal staff. What really irks me is there's no one in front of that podium saying, I'm sorry, I messed up. Everybody makes mistakes. There was only one perfect human being, we hung him on a cross. How do we make up for this? This is particularly galling for me. My comment to this county manager whenever we discussed this was, someone has attempted to sabotage me. We will see how the vote goes tomorrow night. We will see how the meeting goes. Oh, but we can't do that. According to the paper, it's already happened. On a brighter note, Alleghany Council on Aging has received 2 grants this year. They've applied for and received a $6,000 grant from the North Carolina State Employees Credit Union. An additional $5,000 grant from the North Carolina Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We've cut their budget by 3% this year. It's a necessity because of the financial situation of the county. They're going out and they are trying to bring in funds from outside sources. Why? Right now, the Alleghany Council on Aging is delivering 85 meals per day to the elderly that cannot get out. That is a total of 1,727 meals were delivered in April. Now, their norm is 900. Now, these are the people that are at most danger for COVID-19. Of course, all of us on the county commissioners, each one of us has a health problem or an age problem. We are at risk also. But this is how it's impacting our beautiful county. I think a thanks is to be given to the Council on Aging, also to the Sheriff's Department. The deputies have been delivering meals to these residents also. The sheriff's kicked in. And the amazing thing of Alleghany County is we have a big heart. Whenever something like this happens, we just put our shoulder to the wheel. We look out for our neighbors, and we get it done. I would like to reemphasize what the chairman said. Tomorrow night, in this facility, we will have the budget meeting where the public can make comments. Afterwards, we will have the fire tax public meeting, where the public can make comments. After which, of both meetings, I believe, Mr. Chairman, you said that we would take a vote. So, tell your neighbors, correction to the information. And if you have any questions, my phone number is in the book. A lot of you know it. I will give you my cell phone number. I will make myself available at any time until 2100 hours at night. That's 9 o'clock p.m. because I am an early bird. I like to go to bed at about 2100 hours. Anytime in between, I will gladly answer your questions on anything that you have and hopefully dispel some rumors. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the time. God bless this nation.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to mention a lighter note here. EMS week is here in And if you're out and about and you see an ambulance attendant, give them a thumbs up and thank them for what they're doing. And also, Law Enforcement Week is this week. If you see a deputy or some of the law enforcement, why, tell them how much you appreciate them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add on that, if you see a member of the rescue, for God's sakes, thank them also. They're our backups whenever these two ambulances are out. We lose them, we have to put on a third ambulance. Right now, it's minimal cost to us in the budget, but if we have to put on a third ambulance crew, you're going to pay in the pockets. They do an outstanding service, they don't get paid for it. Thank them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll finally shut up.
Thank you. We've got a request for a closed session. General Statute 143-318.11.A-6, personnel.
We got close.
Motion to go in, and probably want to add our HR officer.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second for a closed session. All in favor?
Seems like I can make a detour.